The message arrived at 2:17 in the morning, while Ethan Cole sat alone under the cold fluorescent lights of Mercy General Hospital, staring at the vending machine across the hallway like it might somehow explain why his life had collapsed in less than 60 seconds. His phone buzzed once. Then again. He almost ignored it. The last 12 hours had already drained everything out of him. His father was unconscious 3 floors above him after suffering a second stroke. The hospital bills were stacking faster than Ethan could process them, and his construction company had just lost its biggest contract that afternoon. He didn't have room for more bad news. But then he saw Olivia's name on the screen. His wife. For 1 second, relief hit him, real relief. The kind that loosens your shoulders after holding your breath too long. Olivia had been in Maui for 4 days on what she called a business retreat with investors from her branding agency. Ethan hadn't heard much from her except occasional short texts and blurry beach photos. He figured she was busy. Olivia was always busy lately. He opened the message. A photo loaded first. Olivia stood barefoot on a beach at sunset, wearing a white dress that fluttered in the wind. Her hand rested on the chest of a tall man Ethan recognized instantly. Derek Lawson, her business partner. Both of them wore flower lace around their necks. Both of them smiled like they had just won the lottery. And on Olivia's left hand sat a diamond ring Ethan had never seen before. Below the photo came the text. Just married my business partner, your pathetic BTW. Ethan stared at the screen. His brain stopped working correctly for several seconds. The hospital hallway disappeared around him. The buzzing lights faded. Even the muffled voices from the nurses' station seemed to vanish into static. His thumb shook slightly against the edge of the phone. Then another text appeared. You were dead weight for years. Derek actually understands ambition. A third followed immediately after. Don't embarrass yourself trying to call me. Ethan blinked slowly. He reread the messages once. Twice. 5 times. The words still looked unreal. Like a prank. Like someone else's nightmare accidentally delivered to his phone. Then his chest tightened so hard, he thought he might actually be having a heart attack right there in the hallway. A nurse passing nearby glanced at him. You okay, sir? Ethan opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Because suddenly, every memory from the last 12 years started replaying itself through a completely different lens. Every late night, Olivia claimed she was working. Every conference. Every weekend trip. Every unexplained distance growing between them. He remembered defending her to friends who quietly hinted something felt off. She's building a company, Ethan always said. She's stressed. She loves me. Now he sat in a hospital while his wife married another man on a beach. And insulted him afterward. His phone slipped from his hand onto the tile floor with a hard crack. The nurse rushed over. Sir. Ethan bent down slowly to pick it up, but his hands barely worked. He felt hollow. Like someone had reached inside his chest and scooped everything out. The craziest part wasn't even the betrayal. It was how casually she delivered it. Like canceling dinner plans. Like informing him the dry cleaning was ready. 12 years together. Gone in 3 sentences. Ethan leaned back against the wall and covered his mouth. His father lay unconscious upstairs. His company was bleeding money. And now his marriage was over. The universe had picked one hell of a week to destroy him. A few minutes later, his younger sister Rachel pushed through the hospital doors carrying 2 coffees and immediately stopped when she saw his face. Ethan. He looked up at her silently. Rachel frowned. What happened? He handed her the phone. Rachel read the messages. And her entire expression changed. First confusion. Then disbelief. Then pure rage. You've got to be kidding me. Ethan gave a dry laugh that didn't sound human anymore. I don't think she's kidding. Rachel stared at the screen again. She married him. In Maui, apparently. That psychopath sent this while Dad's in intensive care. Ethan swallowed hard. Guess timing was important. Rachel sat beside him slowly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, she muttered, "I always hated Derek." That almost made Ethan smile. Almost. Derek Lawson looked like the kind of man expensive watches were invented for. Tall, polished, perfect teeth, perfect hair, expensive suits even at casual events. The type who shook your hand while quietly measuring whether you were useful to him. Olivia met him 3 years earlier, when she launched her marketing agency. At first, Ethan supported the partnership completely. Derek brought investors, connections, clients. Within 18 months, Olivia's business exploded. So did the distance between husband and wife. At first, it was subtle. Missed dinners, canceled weekends, late-night strategy sessions. Then came the emotional coldness. Olivia stopped laughing at Ethan's jokes, stopped asking about his day, stopped touching him unless other people were around. Whenever Ethan tried talking about it, she blamed stress. "You have no idea how hard I'm working. You're being insecure. You're too emotionally needy lately." Eventually, Ethan stopped bringing it up. He convinced himself marriage had seasons. Hard seasons. This was temporary. Now he realized the marriage probably ended long before tonight. He was simply the last person informed. Rachel clenched the coffee cup hard enough to crumple it. "I swear if I ever see her again." "Don't. She humiliated you." Ethan stared blankly ahead. "She already won, no point making it uglier." Rachel looked at him carefully. "That's what you think this is, she won." Ethan didn't answer. Because right now, it certainly felt that way. Olivia had the successful company, the luxury lifestyle, the influential friends, the confidence. Meanwhile, Ethan's construction business was collapsing under rising debt after a brutal economic downturn. He'd spent the last year scrambling just to keep employees paid. Olivia increasingly treated him like an embarrassment. Maybe she had been ashamed of him for a while. Maybe Derek represented the glamorous life she actually wanted. A doctor finally approached around 3:05 a.m. with updates on their father. Stable for now. Still critical. More tests needed. Rachel handled most of the conversation, while Ethan stood numb beside her. He couldn't focus. Every few minutes, his mind drifted back to the photo. Olivia smiling on that beach. Happy. Radiant. Like marrying Derek was the happiest moment of her life. And somehow that hurt even more than the insult. By sunrise, Ethan drove back to the house he once shared with his wife. The silence inside nearly crushed him. Olivia's perfume still lingered faintly in the bedroom. Her coffee mug sat in the sink. A sweater hung over the couch. Tiny reminders everywhere that a person could disappear emotionally long before physically leaving. Ethan dropped onto the edge of the bed and rubbed both hands over his face. Then he noticed something strange. Her closet. Half empty. No. More than half. He stood slowly. Opened drawers. Bathroom cabinets. Suitcases gone. Jewelry gone. Important documents missing. Olivia hadn't impulsively run away to Maui and married Derek. She planned this carefully. Probably for months. The realization hit differently. This wasn't emotional chaos. It was organized betrayal. Methodical. Calculated. He suddenly remembered conversations from recent weeks that now sounded sinister in hindsight. Questions about bank accounts, property paperwork, insurance information. She'd been preparing an exit while pretending to still be his wife. Ethan walked downstairs in a daze, then stopped cold near the kitchen counter. An envelope sat there with his name written across the front in Olivia's handwriting. He opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Ethan, by the time you read this, I'll already be starting my new life. I know this seems harsh, but honestly, we both know this marriage stopped working years ago. You became comfortable being average, and I refuse to waste my life settling. Derek and I are building something bigger together. You'll survive. Please don't contact me unless it's through attorneys regarding divorce proceedings. Olivia. At the bottom, she had signed her new name. Olivia Lawson. Ethan stared at it until his vision blurred. Then something inside him cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like ice finally giving way after too much pressure. He sank into a kitchen chair and laughed once. A broken laugh. Because after everything he sacrificed for her. After every overtime shift. Every loan. Every risk. Every year spent supporting her dreams before she had money or status or recognition. She reduced him to average. His phone buzzed again. This time from his longtime friend Marcus. Meeting at 9, don't disappear on me. Ethan had completely forgot. Marcus ran a small investment firm downtown and occasionally consulted with Ethan about restructuring the construction company finances. Ethan almost canceled, then stopped himself. If he stayed inside this house another hour, he might lose his mind. At 8:45, he walked into Grindstone Coffee downtown, looking like a man who hadn't slept in a week. Marcus immediately noticed. Jesus, what happened to you? Ethan slid into the chair across from him. My wife married another man last night. Marcus blinked. What? In Maui. Marcus stared. You serious? Ethan handed over the phone silently. Marcus read the messages slowly. His jaw tightened harder with each line. That's wow. Yeah. She actually sent this. Ahem. Marcus leaned back heavily. I knew Derek was a snake, but this is another level. Ethan rubbed tired eyes. I think she planned it for months. Marcus looked genuinely furious now. You helped build her company from nothing. I know. You refinanced your truck for her startup money. I know. You worked weekends so she could travel for networking events. Ethan gave a hollow smile. Apparently ambition looks different from the other side. Marcus studied him carefully. You okay? No. At least that's honest. Ethan stared out the coffee shop window. People walked by carrying laptops and breakfast sandwiches like the world hadn't just ended. Funny how normal everything looked after catastrophe. Marcus lowered his voice. Listen carefully. Right now you're emotional, exhausted, and vulnerable. That makes people dangerous, especially people like Olivia and Derek. Ethan frowned slightly. What do you mean? I mean, don't assume this ends with heartbreak. If she planned this exit strategically, there could be financial damage coming too. That got Ethan's attention. Marcus continued. Did she have access to company accounts? Some. Joint finances. Yes. Marcus exhaled slowly. You need a lawyer immediately. Ethan's stomach tightened. I can barely afford one. You can't afford not to. For the first time since the texts arrived, genuine fear crept through Ethan's numbness. Because Marcus was right. Olivia knew everything about his finances. His debts. His weaknesses. And if she truly viewed him as dead weight now, what else was she capable of? As if summoned by the thought, Ethan's phone rang. Unknown number. He hesitated before answering. Hello. A smooth male voice replied instantly. Ethan Derek Lawson. Ethan froze. Marcus sat upright across the table. Derek continued casually. I figured we should have a man-to-man conversation. Ethan gripped the phone harder. You married my wife. Ex-wife soon enough. The arrogance in Derek's voice made Ethan's blood boil for the first time all night. You think this is funny? No, I think it's inevitable. Marcus mouthed, speaker. Ethan ignored him. Derek sighed dramatically. Look, Olivia outgrew the marriage years ago. You know that. Ethan's jaw tightened. She used to cry after talking to you sometimes. That hit harder than expected. You're lying. Why would I need to? It's over. Marcus could now hear enough through the receiver to understand pieces of the conversation. Derek continued calmly. She wants a different life, Ethan, bigger opportunities, bigger circles, bigger future. And stealing someone's wife makes you proud. Another sigh. You're emotional right now, so I'll let that slide. But eventually you'll realize we did you a favor. Something dangerous flickered behind Ethan's eyes. Marcus noticed immediately. Derek kept talking. One more thing. Olivia asked me to remind you not to post anything embarrassing online. She, preferred discretion. Ethan laughed bitterly. She's worried about embarrassment now. You'd be surprised how public perception matters in our world. Our world? Derek chuckled softly. Exactly. Then the line disconnected. Ethan lowered the phone slowly. Marcus stared at him. That guy wants to get punched unconscious. Ethan said nothing. Because suddenly, the heartbreak wasn't alone anymore. Now anger was entering the room. Cold anger. The dangerous kind. Not explosive. Focused. Marcus leaned forward carefully. What are you thinking? Ethan stared at the dark coffee in front of him. I think my wife didn't leave me for love. Marcus stayed quiet. I think she left because she thinks success gives her permission to treat people like garbage. Marcus nodded once. And Ethan looked up. For the first time in months, I don't feel sad. That surprised even him. The grief still existed. The humiliation too. But beneath it, something else had awakened. Pride. Not ego. Not revenge fantasy. Just wounded dignity, finally fighting for air. Marcus studied his friend closely. Good. Ethan frowned slightly. Good. You know what destroys most people after betrayal? What? They start believing the betrayer's version of them. Ethan looked away. Too late for that. Marcus continued anyway. She called you average because it justifies what she did. People rewrite history when guilt threatens their self-image. Ethan absorbed that silently. Maybe Marcus was right. Or maybe Olivia simply told the truth. Maybe Ethan really had become small. Exhausted. Stuck. Maybe Derek represented everything she wanted now. Success. Power. Momentum. Meanwhile, Ethan was drowning in hospital bills and failing contracts. The waitress dropped off fresh coffee. Neither man touched it. Marcus finally broke the silence. What's your next move? Ethan rubbed his jaw tiredly. Keep Dad alive, save the company if possible, survive divorce court. That's practical. It's reality. Marcus leaned back. Well, reality has another surprise. Ethan frowned. What? Marcus reached into his briefcase and slid a folder across the table. What's this? Remember the Harbor Ridge development bid you lost yesterday? Ethan nodded bitterly. Losing that contract nearly destroyed his company. Marcus tapped the folder. You didn't lose it fairly. Ethan looked up slowly. What are you talking about? Marcus opened the folder. Inside were copied emails. Financial records. Signed disclosures. And one name appeared repeatedly. Derek Lawson. Ethan's pulse slowed. Marcus lowered his voice. My firm started investigating after some irregular transactions surfaced last week. Derek's investment group manipulated the bidding process. Ethan stared at him. What? They buried your financing credibility with false reporting, quietly pressured the board to reject your proposal. Ethan's stomach turned. Why? Marcus held his gaze. Because Derek didn't just want your wife, Ethan. A heavy silence settled between them. He wanted your entire life. Ethan stared at the folder so long that the words eventually blurred together into meaningless shapes. Outside the coffee shop window, downtown Chicago moved normally. Traffic lights changed. People crossed sidewalks. A bus groaned to a stop. But inside Ethan's chest, something irreversible had shifted. Marcus slid one document closer. Look at the dates. Ethan forced himself to focus. The emails showed communication between Derek's investment firm and two members of the Harbor Ridge Development Committee weeks before Ethan officially lost the bid. Financial pressure. Strategic concerns. Quiet recommendations to avoid unstable contractors. One line made Ethan's blood run cold. Coal construction presents significant long-term risk exposure due to owner instability. Owner instability. Derek hadn't just stolen his wife. He systematically destroyed Ethan's reputation first. Marcus spoke carefully. I didn't want to tell you until we verified everything. How long have you known? 3 days. And you waited. I needed proof before making accusations this serious. Ethan leaned back slowly. 3 days ago, Olivia was still kissing him goodbye before leaving for Maui. 3 days ago, she was still pretending to be his wife. His throat tightened again, but this time grief mixed with something darker. Calculation. How bad is the damage? Ethan asked quietly. Marcus didn't sugarcoat it. Without Harbor Ridge, your cash flow problems become critical within 60 days. Ethan nodded once. He already suspected that. Payroll had become a weekly miracle. Suppliers were getting impatient. Creditors were circling harder every month. And now he realized someone had intentionally pushed him toward collapse. Marcus continued. The bigger issue is Derek's connections. He's been expanding aggressively into commercial development. So if he decides to squeeze your business completely, he probably can. That sentence hung between them heavily. A year ago, Ethan would have exploded in anger hearing that. Now he simply absorbed it. Because emotionally, he already felt demolished. What was left to fear? Marcus watched him carefully. Say something. Ethan finally looked up. He planned this. What? All of it? Marcus stayed silent. The marriage, the contracts, the timing. Ethan rubbed both hands over his face. He isolated me professionally while Olivia emotionally detached from me. The more Ethan spoke, the more obvious it became. The expensive networking dinners Olivia insisted Ethan skip because construction guys wouldn't fit the atmosphere. The events Derek always attended. The clients Ethan mysteriously stopped hearing back from. Even Olivia encouraging Ethan to take fewer risks with his business while Derek quietly sabotaged opportunities behind the scenes. It suddenly looked less like coincidence and more like strategy. Marcus exhaled slowly. You need to protect yourself immediately. Ethan nodded absently. But another memory suddenly surfaced. 3 months earlier. Olivia standing in their kitchen, holding a glass of wine. You ever think about selling the company? Ethan remembered laughing at the time. Why would I do that? Maybe it's time for something different. Now the conversation felt completely different. Maybe Derek wanted Ethan financially broken enough to force a sale. Maybe destroying him wasn't collateral damage. Maybe it was part of the acquisition plan. Marcus interrupted his thoughts. You need copies of all financial records before anything disappears. Ethan stood abruptly. I have to go. Where? Office. Marcus grabbed his jacket immediately. I'm coming with you. The coal construction office sat on the edge of an industrial district Ethan once loved. 10 years earlier, he opened the company with 2 pickup trucks, 4 workers, and enough determination to survive pure exhaustion. Now the parking lot looked emptier than usual. 2 company vehicles missing. Lights off in several departments. Inside, the receptionist gave Ethan a nervous smile. Morning. Something in her expression immediately felt wrong. Where's Tim? Ethan asked. The receptionist hesitated. He left early. Marcus exchanged a glance with Ethan. Tim Reynolds was Ethan's operations manager. Loyal for nearly 7 years. Or so Ethan thought. Ethan walked quickly toward his office. The door stood slightly open. Inside, filing cabinets were unlocked. Desk drawers partially emptied. His computer monitor dark. Marcus muttered under his breath. That's not good. Ethan immediately turned on the computer. Password rejected. He frowned. Tried again. Rejected. What the hell? Marcus stepped closer. Someone changed admin permissions. Ethan's pulse quickened. He moved toward the storage cabinet, containing physical contracts. Half the folders were gone. His stomach dropped. Marcus. Marcus already understood. Call your attorney, now. Ethan reached for his phone when another voice interrupted. Morning, Ethan. Both men turned. Tim Reynolds stood in the doorway, adjusting his tie nervously. And for the first time in 7 years, Ethan noticed how uncomfortable the man looked meeting his eyes. Ethan's voice turned dangerously calm. Where are the files? Tim swallowed. Derek made an offer. Marcus cursed softly. Ethan stared at Tim in disbelief. You sold me out. It's not like that. It looks exactly like that. Tim stepped inside carefully. Cole Construction is sinking, Ethan. Everyone knows it. Ethan moved closer. So you robbed me. I protected myself. Marcus stepped between them slightly as tension escalated. Tim avoided Ethan's eyes now. Derek's group is restructuring several companies. He offered me a position. Ethan laughed once. A sharp, humorless sound. So while my father's in intensive care and my wife's marrying another man, you're stealing company records. Tim finally looked guilty. It wasn't personal. That sentence nearly triggered something violent inside Ethan. Not personal. As if betrayal somehow hurt less when labeled business. Ethan pointed toward the hallway. Get out. Tim hesitated. I already submitted transition paperwork. Ethan's jaw tightened. Get out before I forget we were friends. Tim slowly backed away. But before leaving, he said something that stopped Ethan cold. You should know Olivia signed preliminary merger discussions last month. Silence. Marcus frowned. Merger. Tim nodded uncomfortably. With Lawson Development Group. Ethan felt like the floor shifted beneath him. What merger? Tim looked genuinely uneasy now. She listed partial ownership interest in Cole Construction through marital asset projections. Marcus swore under his breath again. Ethan stared blankly. Olivia was leveraging his company in business negotiations while secretly planning to leave him. Tim quickly added, I didn't know about the affair until recently. Then he left. The office became painfully quiet. Marcus rubbed his temples. This is getting ugly fast. Ethan said nothing. Because his mind was replaying every financial conversation from the last year with horrifying clarity. Olivia encouraging joint account adjustments. Asking detailed questions about company equity. Pushing Ethan to combine certain legal structures for tax flexibility. He'd trusted her completely. And she used that trust like a weapon. Marcus finally spoke. You need a forensic accountant. I need air. Ethan walked out of the office before Marcus could stop him. Outside, cold wind hit his face hard. But it barely touched the storm building inside him. His marriage hadn't simply collapsed. He'd been strategically dismantled by two people smiling directly in his face. And somehow that realization hurt more than the affair itself. Because love dying was tragic. But calculated betrayal. That changed the way you viewed humanity. His phone buzzed. Rachel. Ethan answered immediately. How's Dad? A pause. Then Rachel's voice came quietly. He woke up. Relief hit Ethan so suddenly, he nearly staggered. Is he okay? He's asking for you. 40 minutes later, Ethan entered the hospital room, exhausted beyond words. Machines beeped softly around his father's bed. Frank Cole looked smaller than Ethan remembered. Older, too. The powerful construction foreman, who once carried lumber on his shoulders, now struggled lifting one hand. But his eyes were awake. Sharp. Frank looked at Ethan for several long seconds before speaking hoarsely. You look terrible. That almost broke Ethan emotionally. Because it sounded normal. Familiar. Dad-like. Ethan forced a weak smile and sat beside the bed. You should see the other guy. Frank studied him carefully. What happened? Rachel quietly exited the room, giving them privacy. Ethan looked down at his hands. Then finally said it. Olivia left me. Frank's expression tightened slightly. With another man. Silence filled the room. Frank slowly nodded once, as if confirming something privately to himself. How long? I don't know. Ahem. Ethan frowned. That's it. Frank looked toward the ceiling briefly. Your mother left me once. Ethan blinked. What? Frank smiled faintly. Before you were born. Ethan had never heard this story in his life. She came back 2 months later, Frank continued quietly, but for a while I thought my world ended. Ethan stared at him. Why didn't you ever tell me? Frank shrugged weakly. Wasn't important anymore. The old man turned his head slightly toward Ethan. But I learned something useful. What? Frank's voice grew rougher. When people betray you, they usually think they're escaping your value, when really they're exposing their own character. Ethan absorbed that silently. Frank continued slowly between breaths. You know what destroys men after heartbreak? Ethan waited. They stop respecting themselves. The words landed heavily. Because somewhere deep down, Ethan already felt ashamed. Ashamed he missed the signs. Ashamed he got manipulated. Ashamed another man replaced him so completely. Frank looked directly at him now. Don't beg people to love you, son. Ethan swallowed hard. I wasn't going to. Good. A weak smile crossed Frank's face. Because no woman worth keeping wants a man crawling after her. Emotion tightened Ethan's throat unexpectedly. For a few moments, neither spoke. Then Frank added quietly, You built your company from dirt and sweat. Don't let rich snakes convince you you're worthless. Ethan looked away fast. Because hearing that from his father nearly shattered the emotional wall holding him together. Frank noticed. You still love her. The honest answer hurt. Yes. Frank nodded slowly. That'll fade. You sure? No, Frank smiled faintly, but it sounded wise. Ethan laughed despite himself. And for the first time,